Hello and welcome to This Fire Life. Hope you guys are doing well. Today's topic is why can't I stop thinking about it? And actually, more than why can't I stop thinking about it, which we'll talk about briefly, but mostly why can't I stop thinking about them? So maybe you have a relationship that has ended, or maybe you're in an unrequited situation where you may be more interested in the person than they are, or it's a situation from the past that you've never really been able to get over. And you consistently find yourself thinking about this person again and again and again, even though you consciously don't want to. So actually, there is a scientific explanation for all of this, because inside our bodies are a bunch of operational systems that run much like our phone, right? Your phone is programmed to do certain things. You can input data into it, right? And then teach it to do other things. But it has a generic operating system that is the same for everybody. And the same works for our bodies, right? The fact that we need to eat is part of the operating system in our body. The fact that we are drawn to belonging is part of our operating system that belongs to everybody. And then there are ways in which we impact it through the life that we lead, epigenetics, experience, et cetera, et cetera. But the processes that keep your brain stuck in a certain relationship, actually, it's not your fault, right? It's not that you're crazy or you can't get over it and you get frustrated. Why can't I stop thinking about this person, et cetera, et cetera. I'm going to show you what the buildup is, how the brain functions, why it functions that way, and then how you can start to deprogram yourself from consistently thinking about a person, place, or thing that you don't want to think about anymore. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. There we go. All right, so I'm going to put my glass on because otherwise I won't be able to see. So why can't you stop thinking about them? All right, so we're just going to cut straight to the chase. And there are three reasons. The first is that there is a habit disruption that causes unpleasant feelings, right? And I'll talk about this more in a minute. This is it's like scientific, but not scientific language. The second is that you're going through also a hormonal detox. And the third is that you are faced with an uncomfortable situation that your brain cannot solve. Okay, so all three of these things contribute to a sense of persistent reflection. Now, I'm going to get into it a little bit more in detail. Now, the first thing you need to know about your brain is that it absolutely hates change. The brain is wired and organized to learn things, archive them, and then forget about them, right? Now, imagine what kind of useless creatures we would be if every single morning we had to get up and teach ourselves to feed ourselves, or we had to teach ourselves to walk every morning, or we had to teach ourselves to tie our shoes every morning, or get to work every morning. So the way the brain is organized or operates is that you do an action, and the more you do that action, the more it becomes automated. And once it's automated, it actually moves to sort of like a different part of the brain, stops being in like operational memory and starts being in archived memory. So you don't have to think about it every day. It just becomes automatic. And the golden rule for the brain is that what is known is most comfortable. Now, this can be, I know that March 25th is always my birthday, right? So that's my birthday. That's a thing that's comfortable to me. I know where my office is. I know how to get to my office. When my boss gets fired and there's a whole situation of uncertainty, all of a sudden I do not know anymore and I become uncomfortable. And and as far as comfort things, you know, how we always somehow end up dating our parents, that's because there is an energy there, a dynamic there that is comfortable to us, whether it's healthy or not, right? It's up to us to tell the brain whether something is healthy for us or not healthy for us. The brain just automatically goes to, oh, I know that, I've survived it, therefore it's safe or it's comfortable. So the brain is consistently trying to keep itself out of a state of unknowing, let's say. And of course, what is a greater unknown than a breakup? Now, as I was saying, the brain automates all of its repeated behaviors. And what happens is we spend electrochemical energy every time we think about something. We send like coins in a piggy bank. So I'm putting more coins into that piggy bank, the bigger and bigger that bank gets. And these are neural networks. So every time we think about that thing, it gets stronger and tighter and bigger, right? And more connected to different areas. So if you, let's just say I give you something in Italian to read today, right? You'll read it once, but you're not going to remember it. If you repeat it 16 times or repeat it once a day for 66 days, you see that that neural network around that thought starts to get stronger and stronger and stronger until it's memorized and archived. And this was the point that I was saying, that when you put your attention to a specific thought or a specific question or topic, you intentionally make that neural network stronger. Right? Now, the interesting thing about, I think I talk about it in a minute, so I'll come back to it. Now let's talk about how habits form. As I said before, the brain likes the known, right? And it has sort of two operating systems. One where it gets closer to things that it that it make it feel good, and it tries to avoid things that feel bad. And how we define those is different. So when we when we experience things or we're told things as social conditioning, we try it, we like it, we're like, oh, okay, this is something I want to repeat. This is a behavior I want to repeat. And the more you repeat that behavior of enjoyment, the more that gets locked. Same with things we don't like. We try something we don't enjoy. I do not like fishy fish. We know we don't like that, so that means we avoid it. And the more these get processed, right, the tighter they become. And they become like those neural networks here. They become very intricate and tight and important. The more they are repeated and continued. They also get connected to a different association, right? Like we might have enjoyed cake as a child. We might associate cake with a baby. With a party, or we might associate cake with that trip to Paris. And so that's how those networks start to expand and get bigger and more interconnected. So it's like thinking about Paris, you might think about that cake. Thinking about that cake, you might think about Paris. Same with negative things, right? If there's the time we tried fish that we didn't like and it made us sick, it might make us think of that also that other time on the bus that we got sick, or it might make us think of that time we were on a boat and got sick. And so that becomes a tight neural network. And over to I've repeated this already, but over time and with repetition, these connections get stronger and stronger until they become very intricate networks. Now, love is like one of these networks, right? And it has hormones attached to it. So it falls into this situation, right? We meet this person, we have an interaction with this person, it's positive. The more that repeats, the more our pleasure hormones of dopamine increase. And so that becomes a behavior that we want to repeat. And then we also, it adds on a dose of adrenaline, serotonin. And so we start to get very excited and addicted to this behavior. And so it becomes something that we actually want to increase. And then as a result, in women, we see an increase of oxytocin. In men, we can see an increase in vasopressin. And this is to help us bond. So we continue to bond to this person who stimulates this dopaminic response, this adrenalinic response, this serotonergic response. And we get closer and closer. And so that relationship becomes a habit. Now, as I said, this is what our habits look like, right? They're very tightly and intricately interconnected. But the more energy we put to them, the stronger they are and the more connected to other things in the brain they are. I hope this is tracking so far. So let's say you wanted to stop smoking, right? Let's say one of these is your addiction to cigarettes. You can never blow up a network, right? It's not like on a file where you highlight, click, delete. The only way you can remove a habit is by making it weaker, by not sending that electrochemical attention and energy to it, which we can do by putting our attention elsewhere, right? So this thing is never going to die. It's never going to be erased. It's just going to get debilitated. And so that's one of the reasons why when you break up is because you still continue to think about it. And so you actually throw more energy at it than you would normally, because now you're also in a state of unknown. So in order to weaken a network, you have to cease giving it fuel and send that energy elsewhere. Now, going back to the first page here that I mentioned, we have a compound situation with a breakup. It's a perfect storm, if you will, because you've had a pleasant habit, right? Something that made you feel good now becomes something that's making you feel bad. So you want to fix it, right? And get it back to that place of goodness, because your brain avoids unpleasant and is attracted to pleasant. So you're like, how you suddenly start thinking, how can I get it out of this unpleasant space and move it back to this pleasant space? So we can think, is it something I did? Where did things go wrong? And you start digging into your entire past and your history to figure out where things, to answer a very simple question, why, right? And that's the uncomfortable situation to solve. The brain is now out of its place of certainty and in a space of uncertainty. And so it wants to get back to a place of certainty. And so you start digging into the relationship. Why did this happen? What are they doing? What can I do? How do I fix this? You know, and so there's all of this extra energy that's being thrown at the problem, which of course is not helping it. So if we look at it in these, and then on top of that, you're also detoxing, because all of this hormonal, the states of elevated hormonal happiness have just been ripped, you know, like an IV, have just been ripped out of you. So you have a decrease in those feel good hormones. You have a habit that's trying to be blown up, but without an answer as to what else can I replace it with, right? And that's why sometimes we jump straight into a new relationship, because that eases all of those pains and answers all of those questions on a superficial level. And you're trying to figure out why. What did I do? Was it something that I did? Was it something that I said? How can I fix this? right? And so these are the three situations that you have going on when you deal with a breakup. And the good news is that with time, because just in the same amount of time as it took us to form these habits, it takes us time to weaken the habits. So that's why the first thing you want to give yourself when you're in breakup zone, and why can't I stop thinking about this person, is the comprehension of that the time it took you to get there, it's going to take you the same, maybe a little faster, to get out, right? Because you have to weaken a very strong network that's been operating at a high level. So these are the three things that you want to do, right? So we have a habit disruption that's been something that has been blown up, right? And that now feels unpleasant. So you want to focus your energy, instead of trying to figure out how do I get that habit back, in developing new habits. So this is go to the gym, take a class, start walking to work, or give yourself one of those 28 60-day challenges of every day I'm going to watch a self-help video on stress management on YouTube. You have to create a new place to throw that mental energy at, so we can start weakening this one by investing our time here. Because if you're not, you can only think about one thing at a time. And if your thoughts are not directed towards something, they're in something called the default state mode, which is like the brain offering you up 8,000. That's the so-called monkey mind, right? Like, do you want to think about this? Do you want to think about this? Do you want to think about this? But every time you direct your thought process into something very specific, it can't stay in that rumination space. And so if every time you start thinking about, your brain immediately goes back to the relationship or things that happened in the past or memories, reliving memories, blah, 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 immediately consciously shift your thinking to something else, anything else. And you can even just sit there and call out the objects in the room until your brain is distracted with another thought process or another thought chain. So the first thing you want to do is shift your thinking habits away from that into something new. So if you create a project, or this is why a lot of men throw themselves into work, right? And actually, we're always like, why aren't they at home thinking about it, right? They're actually very much in the process of detaching from whatever the breakup is, so that they can get over it faster. Because instead of dealing with it or ruminating it or sitting in it, they're just actively throwing their thinking towards something else, which is why that network starts to get weaker. Now, the second thing is that, of course, you have this hormonal detox that you have going on. And so then you look for alternative dopamine sources. Now, dopamine can come in several different ways. You can exercise, you can learn, doing creative projects. It's about accomplishment and achievement, right? So, or setting out a goal and making that goal happen. So I'm going to turn my new balcony into something, or I'm going to redecorate the house, or I'm going to create a painting. I'm going to start a podcast. Any one of those things, and it's very closely tied with the first one, right? With the developing new habits. Anytime that habit is a healthy habit that has progress and accomplishment attached to it, that will help you supplant some of the missing dopamine that is lost in the breakup. And the third one is, because you have the brain is sitting there looking for a why, you're going to give it an answer, right? So let's say your brain does float off into that space and you think about the person and you're like, right love, wrong guy, or right guy, wrong lifetime, right energy, wrong moment. So to find what it is that didn't work, right? You know, if they cheated, um, the love was there, it wasn't true, right? Or he wasn't faithful. Something that will tell yourself to just constantly remind yourself of why you can't go back there, or why it broke up in the first place, right? And you know, you get to write whatever that is, or wasn't going to be, we weren't on the same page for the future. So why theoretically it wouldn't have worked out, whether you believe it or not at the beginning, is not as important as you continuing to repeat it to yourself until you do believe it, or until you distract yourself enough and give your brain the answer that it's looking for it to be like, okay, hold on, maybe I should stop thinking about this. Maybe I should put my energy somewhere else. You want to give it an answer so that it can calm down and give you that space to start focusing your energy elsewhere. And all you have to do, instead of like getting angry at yourself, you know, why am I still thinking about this person? Why can't I stop thinking about it? Radical acceptance. Yes, I'm still thinking about it. It is a normal part of the process, right? You want to give yourself understanding and reassure your brain as if it was sort of like a concerned parent in your body, trying to make you live well but overzealously. And so why do I keep thinking about this person? Because we're in the process of disconnecting. It's normal. And so then you can calm your brain down and you just repeat that, and then focus your energy towards something that is more constructive, more helpful, just keeping your brain out of that space. And you will find that over time, and again, this is not something that happens overnight, but that if you are vigilant about these three activities, right? Giving yourself something that you can achieve for yourself to sort of provide yourself that own sense of dopamine, develop a new habit so that you're not constantly thinking about what was, and to provide the voice inside your head with healthy answers, not like, oh, you were terrible, you didn't deserve him. You know, you don't want to beat up on yourself. You want to do it in a way that's very positive, but also realistic and grounded, right? It just wasn't the right time. It's not the right time. There's, this is clearly not my person. So whatever it is that you need to repeat in order to be able to disengage long enough to give yourself the time to metabolize all of that, so that the hormones can calm down, so that your thinking networks can calm down, so that your stress levels can calm down, and then you start to see it a little bit more rationally. But like I said, you want to be gentle with yourself and understanding that it is a process. It does not happen overnight. You did not create this strong connection with this person overnight. You are not going to undo a strong connection with someone overnight. But as we've all seen, and this is even something you can tell yourself, right? Like, I've broken up with people before. I'm going to be fine. It's just going to take time. And maybe that's the answer that you give to your brain when it's like, yeah, but this hurts. I don't like this. Be very understanding. Yes, but we've done it before. We're going to be safe. You always want to remind your brain that it's in a safe space, that it will be safe. We're going to be safe. We're going to be okay. And we will find, you know, the other concern is that we'll never find another person, but we will find love again. We will find somebody potentially better suited for us, right? We always have the default thinking that the future is going to be worse, but we don't know what the future is. And so really anything could happen. I had a counselor once who told me, no one is ever worried about being too rich, too thin, or too pretty in the future, right? We always go to, and the brain does have a negative default state because it's there to be hypervigilant to keep you alive. And so it does hyper focus on the negative, and it's our job to make sure that it's also receiving objective information not just subjective emotional information, but objective information, and looking at the future with it. Hey, we don't know. We have no idea what could happen in the future. Maybe this will work out in the future, but for right now, it's a no. So giving yourself those answers so that you can be able to move through this kind of difficult moment. But do know that it is not your fault. You are not crazy. It's a very normal and natural thing, and it's caused by functioning systems, like they're meant to function this way. Sometimes they get lost. But they are functioning systems. They're there for a reason, and they are there to do very specific jobs. Sometimes the wires get crossed, and we end up with situations like this. So be kind with yourself. Understand that it is a process. It is going to take time. But as you have in the past, you will get through this. It's just a question of time, methodology, and consistency. Okay? Thanks for listening. See you at the next video.